Think of your mothers, your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers. Think of the generations of women who've gone before and fought for the right to education, for the right to vote. Think of the ones who continue to fight for equal pay, for access to health care. Think and be thankful for the seeds of change they planted. Despite advances in developed countries, around the world, hundreds of millions of women still struggle to survive. In economically disadvantaged communities and countries, women remain incredibly vulnerable. They represent 70% of the world's poor, even though more often than not, they are the key to their family's survival. In sub-Saharan Africa, women produce 80% of the food in most households, but own only 1% of the land, farming it on behalf of their husbands and their families. In the face of drought and famine, they are the ones most at risk, often giving up their own meals to feed their children or their husband. 70% of the world's labor hours are worked by women, yet they earn only 10% of the world's income. They are the least likely to be educated. In rural Liberia, for example, only 26% of women can read, and 42% never attend a school. All of this, despite the fact that studies clearly show educating women can have a significant impact on the health and welfare of communities. Farms operated by educated women, for example, yield 22% more crops than those run by non-educated women. And while a man is likely to spend only 30 cents of every dollar he earns on the family, a woman, on the other hand, spends 80 cents of every dollar she earns to benefit her family. Clearly, the world needs to educate women. And in rural Liberia, the Dougbe River School is doing just that. Liberia is uniquely suited to a movement that empowers women through education. After all, it was through the concerted efforts of thousands of women that the country's 14-year civil war finally came to an end in 2003. And it has the distinction of being the first nation on the continent of Africa to choose a female head of state, electing Ellen Johnson Sirleaf president in 2005. In fact, in 2011, she was elected again for another 6-year term, confirming the country's commitment to fostering opportunities for women. It should come as no surprise, then, that when Isaac Mona, a Liberian refugee living in the United States, first traveled back to his parents' home in a remote part of the country, and he talked about opening a school there, some of his first and strongest supporters were women. In a historic and unprecedented move, they and the men of the villages donated 150 acres of land, and when the time came, they worked alongside the men, fixing bridges and clearing the jungle. The promise of a school in a part of the country where there had never been one before also helped bring about changes in some of the more controversial traditions impacting women in the region. As part of their contract to have the school built in the area, the men and women of the community agreed to end the practice of female circumcision and the arranged marriages of girls and young women. They've followed through on those commitments, modifying traditional customs and ceremonies to incorporate the women and place less emphasis on the separation of genders. And all girls enrolled at the school can pursue their education, free from the expectations of marriage to men, often twice their age. After 1 year of operation and a hiatus during the Ebola crisis in the country, the school now serves over 150 students. Over 60% of them are girls. While it was founded to be a beacon of empowerment and hope for all children in the area, the girls especially have adopted its mission and taken advantage of the education it offers, from preschool through the 12th grade. The next generation of women leaders in Liberia is growing and learning in Grand Gedeh County. In many parts of the world, the successful development of communities and even countries will depend on the education and empowerment of women. In Grand Gedeh County, Liberia, that work has already begun, and a generation of young women look forward to the time when their daughters and their granddaughters can look back and give thanks for the seeds of change being planted today.